start recording. Okay.
And a good night. And a good night.
Carson, do you all need some help?
We're just trying to figure out the sound right now. It's not connecting to the TV. It's connected to my computer, but Carson's messing with it to hopefully get it fixed. So, yeah. Carry on. Also, hello. We are Wakanda Christian Church Youth, and we're happy to be here.
You know, Harold and I bought some post office trucks for selling business. And on the dashboard, they have a little sign that says, "Be alert."
Okay.
So exciting. It's 6 o'clock and there's still a little light outside. That gives me so much hope for spring. We can hope.
This morning there were so many birds chirping. It was amazing. Liberty, is there a dog downstairs? I just have to say, I have a group. My baptism group is meeting upstairs in the church, and then our youth are meeting downstairs in the church. And this is the most action the church has seen in a year, like in our building.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been quite a deal.
Hi, Lois.
Oh, there is. Robin, let me know when you think you want to get started. I don't know when all of your people will be there.
I think we are ready whenever you and Ann are.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to pass Maggie off. Okay, well, thank you so much, Anne, for coming and sharing all about impact with us. So Anne, okay, nope.
No.
Nope, we need Mom.
That's okay. Yep. Okay.
Claiming that student lunch accounts are out of money. The call is an attempt to get.
So Anne is the director at Impact Community Action. And I'm sorry, we're having a moment in the house. And so the Community Action Partnership. And she was going to tell us a little bit about some poverty myths and misconceptions tonight. And so she has a history of working in the church as well. So I think it's going to have some great insight about how the church is connected in supporting people, and also what we can do to better show up for people.
Stoppers of CentralIowa.com.
Well, that is what we hope will happen. So thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I'm gonna share my screen with you and hope for the best that it'll show up. Those of you that aren't on Zoom a lot, oftentimes you can make the slide I shared with you smaller so you can still do gallery view if you want to see other people's faces. I certainly, if you do have a camera, I'd love to see people's faces. Yeah, I am with Impact Community Action Partnership. Community actions across the country were started in 1964 by the Johnson administration when he declared war on poverty. And a lot of things came out of that program: legal aid, Head Start, the Equal Opportunity Act, and community action. In Iowa, there are 16 community actions, and every county in Iowa has one. Impact covers Boone, Jasper, Warren, Marion, and Polk County. And just to give you a little background about me, I do like seeing a little bit of Wakanda there because I used to be the executive director at Bidwell Riverside Center. And when I was at Bidwell Riverside Center, we had Toys for Tots there for many years and had a great partnership with your church. Before that, I've worked in community action off and on, but I also was a field outreach minister for the United Methodist Church. And so I worked with local congregations in the north central part of the state, working on mission and outreach. I'm a mom, I'm an aunt, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister. I am passionate about many things, but the thing that tops that list is dealing with the symptoms and causes of poverty. And why am I here? We got a call from your pastors there about having us come and talk a little bit about what we do. And we love any opportunity to do that because we think the message is so important. And during this time of the pandemic, we haven't been able to get we haven't gone anywhere. We're very hard locked down and impact because we have so few staff that if anybody gets sick, it's really harmful. So most of us are working at home and working very hard. I do want to let you know before I get going a little bit more about Impact, just so you have an idea of our scale and scope. Last year, we served just over 46,000 individuals in our 5 counties. We do energy. We focus a lot on basic needs, so energy, housing, and food. We really focus on basic needs because we follow Maslow's hierarchy. Any of you that might have went to college at some point in a psych class learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But if you want to know more about that, I'll come back another time. But that's why we focus on those basic needs. And today we're going to frame a lot of what we're talking about. And I want you to think about Matthew 25, 31 through 46. And we're going to come back to what that is. I often call it the sheeps and the goats. People know the story of the sheeps and the goats. For those of you that will get to know me over time, will learn that I am a little cheeky about some of these things. So when I used to preach about this particular topic, it was often called help the poor or go to hell. Because the question has always been that I pose to people, did you know that it says, this is the most dangerous thing a Christian can say. It says in the Bible that if you don't help the poor, you'll go to hell. And I'll explain that a little bit later. But one thing as I get going, everyone's going to want to have some paper, if at all possible. We're going to ask some questions and you're going to need to answer some questions. And so having some paper handy would be good. Later when we're done, I know you want to go see if I'm telling the truth about the Bible saying that. So you'll want to write down Matthew 25, verse 31 through 46. Poverty. We hear a lot about poverty in the news, and I want to get some basic understanding with everybody about what poverty is. Because when you see a statistic like this, U.S. Census Bureau reports poverty rate down, but millions still poor. But that was in 2019 that the poverty rate was down. At that, right now in the United States, 11.8% of people are considered in poverty. Here in Polk County, 9.5%, but in Des Moines, 14.6% of people are considered in poverty. So when you hear anyone talking about poverty and what that number means, what I want you all to think about is if you had to guess what is considered in poverty by the federal government, I want you to think about a family of 4 and think to yourself, what amount of money would be the most amount of money someone could make in a month and still be considered poor or in poverty in the United States? So as you're thinking about that, if just one person would want to venture a guess, I'll be interested in hearing what your guesses are. My youngest daughter's in law school right now, and she's studying in our home. And I learned about the Socratic method, which is oftentimes they'll just call on people if no one's answering. So if you have a good guess, or if you just want to throw out a guess, that's great. Or not, I'll just have to call on somebody.
I would guess 35,000 a year.
35,000 a year. So a family of four, $35,000 a year. Here's what the United States says poverty is, that a family of four has to be under $25,750 a year to be considered in poverty. So when you see those numbers, whether it's in the news, in a newspaper, or anywhere, when they say people in poverty and the numbers aren't very high, it's because this number is astronomically low. So a family of four in the United States is considered to be in poverty at 25,750. A family of one is 12,490. The poverty rates were determined early in the 60s, how they were going to determine them, and they figured it based on the cost of food. But something really interesting happened in the early 70s when Richard Nixon was president, and he had a director of the Department of Agriculture of the last name Butts. I'll never forget it because his last name's Butts. But they determined that one of the things you have to do to keep a population happy is to keep their food affordable. So it was in the 70s that they started manipulating the cost of food to keep our cost of food down. So dairy subsidies, farmland subsidies, all kinds of things came into play to keep our food artificially low in price. And so they didn't adjust the poverty rate to that. So that has kept this number artificially low. But in our world, in the world I work in, where we help people, everyone wants everyone to be self-sufficient. It seems like everyone, all they really want is, can't everyone just take care of themselves? And so we're going to spend a little bit of time tonight talking about what does that mean? What would it actually mathematically cost for the family to not be in poverty, but also to be fully self-sufficient? So we're going to break you up in groups here in a minute to talk to one another. And you are going to write a budget. But you're not going to know how much money you have, because it doesn't matter how much money you have. We want to know how much money you need, right? So I want you to think of yourself as a single parent with two children. So all of you should be making notes just in case you're getting a group and someone else didn't take notes. But you're going to be a single parent with two children. One is 2 years old and one is 6. And what you're trying to determine is how much would it cost to meet your most basic needs. Now, everything we're going to work on tonight comes from an agency called Common Good Iowa. It used to be called the Iowa Policy Project of the Children and Family Policy Group. They figured out these numbers, right? So the first thing you have to think about is rent and utilities. Now, you're not going to be in the nicest house. In fact, you're going to be at the 40th percentile, so a little less than the middle house, but not substandard. Okay, so an okay place that it has enough bedrooms, so it would have at least 2 bedrooms for this family, and the utilities. You have to buy food, but all your food is to be cooked at home. You don't have to factor in eating out. You don't have to factor in any Starbucks. You don't have to factor in anything other than what you have at home. And ultimately, the number we're going to talk about is figured by the USDA under the low cost food plan. The USDA has 4 levels of food plan, and this isn't the bottom one, which is called thrifty. It's the next. So not the most expensive food, but they're not going to eat ramen every day. You have to have childcare because this parent works and her kids are in childcare. And so what I want you to think about is what you would pay in home in Polk County for childcare. So these are not going to fabulous, beautiful, big centers or a Montessori school or preschool, anything like that. They're going to in-home care. You need health care. You have to cover the cost of insurance, your out-of-pocket costs. And we want you to use what you think is an average employee share. So like where I work, we pay part of people's health care, but not all of it. So we know what the county average is that people are paying. Transportation. You have to be purchasing a car. Most families have a car payment. Very, very few own a car outright. So you have to pay for the car. You have to have insurance, gas, and maintenance. And the last thing on the list is clothing and household expenses. So clothing for the adult, clothing for those growing children. This is also where you would put their cell phone and any household maintenance, including cleaning. One way to think about this is every time you go to the grocery store, whatever you put in your cart that you can't eat would go under here, along with taking care of your house. So what your group is going to do, and we're not going to give you a ton of time, we're going to give you about 10 minutes, okay? We're going to put you in groups. You'll see a pop-up that says join group breakout room X, number 4, number 2, number 1. And you're going to go into that group and you're going to create how much you think of these things cost per month in Polk County. And then you don't have to worry about this math part. We'll do that together when we get back, but definitely work on those monthly expenses. Does anybody have any questions?
Is the baby potty trained, the 2-year-old?
Those of you that have had children before, what are the odds that that 2-year-old is fully potty trained? Nope. That was a great question though. So we're going to go with no, not potty trained. And also, we're trying to figure out the full cost of this being self-sufficient. There may be someone in your group that says, well, they would qualify for SNAP, or we should give them free lunches. This is a self-sufficient family that doesn't need anything from the government. So you're going to try to figure out what this would cost. Everybody ready? Let's see, there's 17 people here. So we are going to set up breakout rooms. We're going to do 3. So a little box is getting up, click in, you'll get a little message when it's time to come back. It'll tell you when it's time. You don't have to come back when that pops up. Just know you have 1 minute. After that box pops up, you'll have 1 minute. So we will see you all back here in 10 minutes. So Bruce, are you having trouble getting to your room?
I think Bruce might be frozen.
Oh, okay. Well, I just hang out here. So you're welcome to join, but if you have another group, you could.
Did you send me to one?
I should have.
You're fine. I can go join one. Is there one?
Let me just send you. Oh, it's because you're co-host.
Oh, that's why. Okay. I will go to one. Let me see which one has.
Let me see if I can do it. Can you go to one?
I think I can.
Yeah, you can. Just click join on any of them.
I can go to one.
3, probably 3 has the least amount.
Okay. I'm going to.
Have fun.
Wait, hang on. How do I do that? Join. There we go. Join room. Yes.
So we need to decide. I have no idea about childcare. I'm too far away from that.
Where's the camera?
There's Robin.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, there's Robin.
Ah. Oh, we're on.
Yeah.
Anne, are you going to turn on your
Yeah, sorry, my camera's not working today, so no, you're just gonna see my name, but I'm here.
Okay, and you will see us eating a little bit here.
We're eating our salad.
That's okay.
Who's the chairperson?
Robin.
No,
are you Joan?
No. I was just gonna chime in that I think in-home childcare for one kid, I think would run about $150 a week, but for 2, I think you're looking at least $250 a week.
But the 6-year-old ought to be going to school.
Yeah, but you probably need some after-school care. So you're probably looking at $300 a month, $300 a week.
A week.
Yep.
400 a month.
I can't see how you can take it louder.
Okay.
Okay.
Food.
Rent and utilities. in here in Des Moines.
Is this for a family of four? How large is the family we're talking about?
It's a single parent with a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Uh-huh.
So probably looking at a 2-bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2-bedroom.
I don't even know what we pay.
I would think, I mean, rent would probably be around $800 a month.
Yeah, I would think so.
But then utilities.
That's your electricity, your heating.
Yeah. What do you think that would run a month?
Does that include telephone? Because you need a telephone.
Where did she put cell phone in?
A cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was in clothing and household expenses.
It's hard to compare when you think that a person that has those family needs would probably not own their house. And so they were paying rent. Rent would be, something they'd have to do.
Yep. So, I mean, I would think if they're in an apartment, their heating costs are usually lower just because they're.
Some of them are.
So what do we think? Maybe we're looking at $1,200 a month for rent and utilities?
For rent, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, let's see. That would mean you're paying $400 a month for utilities. Is that what you're figuring?
That's what I mean, I'm just wondering.
Oh, I wouldn't think they'd be that much.
No, we don't pay that much. Now, we own our home, but
this person in this imagined situation does not, very likely.
Correct.
But
So
you could probably put it at 200.
You think 1,000?
I would think 200 to be more like it.
I think 200 would be more like it, yes.
For utilities. Yeah.
Okay. Food.
So you're talking $1,000 a month just for rent and utilities.
Yep.
Does that include things like internet and that type of thing? That would probably be part of their cell phone, and cell phones are pretty expensive.
Yeah. So food. 3 people in the family. Hi. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Yeah. Now, thankfully, little kids don't eat a lot.
They don't eat much, yeah.
So I would probably say what their food cost might be comparable to, some of yours, like a two-person household. What do you think?
No.
$100 a week in food?
Yes, that definitely.
500.
Yeah.
Okay, about 500 a month, right? I think that's what we would spend.
Yeah. I put so healthcare.
That could be a big variable.
Yes.
That varies quite a bit. Yeah, it depends on whether your employer is covering you, has a plan for you, or are you without insurance?
Do we know if this person in this setting is employed, and does she have to pay for daycare?
Correct. Yes, she said she is working.
And therefore she needs to pay for daycare.
Correct. Yeah.
Unless she has a grandma who would do it for very little. That can be pretty expensive.
Yes. So since she is working, I think it might be safe to assume there's some employer health care. I'm a pastor who does not have employer health care and has never had employer health care, so I genuinely do not know what does employer health care run these days.
But
I have a little bit of an experience with that, and it depends on your coverage, but for a lot of places just cover the employee only, and that might only cost something like 50 to something a paycheck, so a month, I don't know. But then to add the dependents is what gets it. And I think it could be a couple hundred, 250 a month, maybe. What do you think, Paul? Health insurance to cover the kid. Ooh. Well, she would probably keep it as minimal as she thought she could get by with. So let's say 200.
200?
200.
Okay.
well, that's pretty low. That's pretty low these days. I know that as a retired pastor and spouse, we pay a premium of $500 a month for our plan, and that's with the church. And then besides that, we also have Medicare, and we have to pay that as well, and that is over $100 a month. So we're paying about $600 a month for health care, and that excludes deductibles and co-payments. That comes out of our pocket. We figured that we pay about $10,000 a year for our health care, and we're insured.
Yeah. And I think the copay thing, a lot of plans, do well visits are no copay, but you think of like a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, how many doctor's appointments you usually have to do for those, for strep throat, ear infections, those kinds of things. So maybe tack on, another 150, 350 just per month.
Yeah.
I think it could, yeah, it depends on the employer plan. If the kids are covered, that's great, It depends on the employer plan. But if they have to cover the kids, it could be pretty expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any idea what type of work this person would be doing?
No.
Because if she's working at Wendy's, she's not going to get much coverage.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so should we just put in
We're
like
gonna-
400?
400?
But we literally had most of us had no current experience with to even have a clue.
Yeah.
Like different costs of things. Like I don't really know. None of us have, school age kids or younger to even have a point of reference for that. So
yeah,
we were able to tell them how much a box of diapers would be per month because we both have kids in diapers right now.
Did it shock them? Was it shocking? Shocking?
Yeah.
well, yeah, I would agree with that. Just the times that I bought those is just, let's do a diaper shower for folks. And I'm like, my God, that was $25 for that box of diapers. Are you kidding
That's
me?
right. That's right. Well, Jill, since you're chatting, I need to know, what did your group come up with for a total monthly cost?
Well, I'm sure, like I said, and Lucy can attest to this, we're sure we're low on this, but we came up with $3,400 a month.
So $3,400 a month. Let's get a calculator. Who has a calculator handy on their phone that they could pull up?
Let's say 3,400.
Yep.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, minutes here.
So 3,400 times 12. What's that number?
$40,800.
I was going to say
Okay.
just around 40.
All right. And then if you divide that by the number 2,080.
Oh boy.
2,080.
Yeah, who knows why we divide it by 2,080?
That's how many hours you're working, right? Like
That's a
an
full-time
rate.
Yeah, so the hourly rate.
1962.
1962. Are you kidding? Of course, that's after taxes, right? So the actual amount, you'd have to go up a few dollars to cover the taxes. Well, let's see, let's see how much it actually costs. Because we have the real numbers. Oh, before we do that though, what is missing when you look at that budget and you think about your own life? what is missing from that budget that you think, oh, maybe we should have this in there?
We had no entertainment.
No, zero, zip. There's no Netflix, no Netflix. Did I mention there's no Netflix? And then, there's no vacations, there's no going to the movies.
Well, nor is there anything for like a major, like my washer just went out, or my car just broke, or
No
what, you know what I'm saying?
savings.
Yeah, there is no, you're living paycheck to paycheck, literally.
That's very
And
basic.
maybe not doing it that well, even in that case, right? Because that can only go so far.
Anything else you noticed wasn't in there?
Well, if you have 2 kids, I only have 1, but like entertaining her is so difficult. And so like a Zoom membership is so important for us to get her experiences and to grow and to learn, and just little things like that, those monthly payments that you don't think about.
There's no developmental activities for the kids at all. Whether it is a membership like that, whether it's going to soccer, whether it's, t-ball or swim lessons, nothing like that.
There's none either. Like there's no workout plan or any type of self-care month-to-month things that are so important for somebody's well-being.
Right.
Therapy.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no therapy.
There's no phone listed either.
Yeah, the phone can go in household, but I think also people would be very shocked to know what a full smartphone plan costs. I'm shocked every time I look at ours.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of things. There's no retirement there. There's no life insurance there. There's a lot. There's no holidays. There's no Christmas presents. There's no birthday presents. There's nothing other than the most basic. And we do that because a lot of people believe that you can have people budget their way out of poverty. And so when we look at the most basic needs, we don't want anyone saying, well, they could cut this or they could cut that. We want people to understand this is the most basic amounts, right? Well, here's the actual amounts. These are actual dollar amounts. The research was done to see what it actually costs in Polk County. So for rent and utilities, it was right around $910 a month. For food, $655. My family is currently my husband and I, and one of our adult daughters lives here, but she doesn't eat our food because she's vegan. My husband and I, and we don't eat steak every day or anything like that, but we do eat a lot of pre-prepped food because of our work, but we spend $800 a month on groceries. So $655 is not outrageous for a family of 3. Childcare, $925. This family will pay more per month for their childcare than they will for their housing. And that's for in-home care. Center care would be up considerably. Their health care, the employee share is $504 a month for a family plan. Transportation for that car payment, gas, maintenance, plates, all those things, $604. And clothing and household items, $360. So you were not far off in that group that I called on. This one's $3,958 or $22.83 per hour after taxes. Now, this particular family, I know from my own experience, when they file their taxes and they get the earned income tax credit and some other things like that, they will get some of their tax money back, but that means during the month, they don't have that money to spend. So they need $22.83 an hour take home in order to make ends meet in this very basic budget. That's a great question. And we know how much the median income is in Polk County, and per job, it is not $23 an hour. And how big of an issue is this? I showed you some statistics early on about what's happening around poverty, but when we look at Des Moines proper, 68% of families with school-aged children qualify for reduced lunch, and that's 130% of poverty. So that is less than $33,475. So that's even less than that basic needs budget we just did. 68%, 21,000 children are living in homes in Des Moines where the families cannot regularly meet their basic needs without some form of assistance. There's a myth about welfare. People used to call it AFDC. They called it the dole. They called it cash welfare. Now it's called FIP or TANF. That is when a family gets a cash, they get a check or they get a debit card every month with some money on it. In Polk County, all of Polk County in the month of January, just over 1,000 families had access to that type of assistance. Very, very few families get welfare assistance now. And the average payment in Polk County for that assistance was $323.10. The amazing thing about cash welfare is in 1987, I was a single mom in California and was in poverty. I moved back to Iowa to be with my family, and I got on welfare. I got on cash welfare to be able to take care of our family while I went back to school. The payment for myself and one child was $368 a month. If a single parent goes and applies for TANF or cash welfare today, it's $368. It has not changed since that time. So when people think about people using the system or living off welfare, it's just not happening because you can't. Nobody could. You couldn't survive on it. So people are working, they're working multiple jobs, and they're still not able to meet those basic needs. So in Iowa overall, when you think of single parents, almost 63% of them can't meet their basic needs every month. Single people, 27% can't meet their basic needs every month. So it is a problem. Even married couples without children, almost 9% of them can't meet their basic needs. So there are a lot of people that cannot consistently meet those most basic needs, let alone send their kids to summer camp or to swim lessons, like you said, or to give them Christmas presents. All those types of things aren't even in the budget. We talked early on about people in poverty, and that when you read that how many people are in poverty, that number is grossly low compared to what it actually takes to meet basic needs. So for that single parent with 2 kids, they need $46,610 a year. If they're in poverty, the government says they're in poverty if they're below 20,000. So it's not even half of what it actually costs. And when you talked about who pays that, here's the deal. In Polk County, the median wage, that means if you took all the people and you lined them up, the person in the center, if you lined them up according to the person making the most money, the person making the least money, you went to that center person, they make $17.84. So that means all those people, some to the plus side of that person, all the way down, do not make that median wage. In the minimum wage, of course, is $7.25. There's a lot of rattling around increasing that to $15 an hour. I often get asked, will that solve the problem? It is a start. It will not solve the problem, and it will, of course, create other problems. But the idea of being able to pick an arbitrary number to set the minimum wage is not that helpful. And of course, we're looking at living in Iowa, what it costs. If you looked at what it costs to live in San Francisco, that $15 minimum wage would be meaningless there. So it's an issue and it's real. So what to do about it? Our current answer is work supports. That is, the government passes things like that TANF I talked about, childcare assistance, EITC, food stamps. Those are the things we've put in place in what we call the social safety net. But there's a problem. When we stack this up, this is the blue there is where people are as they approach that basic needs budget line at each hourly pay, right? So if they get EITC, that helps. That's the yellow. If they get other tax credits, they get a little more back. If they get Medicaid or Hawkeye for their children, that helps substantially because it reduces that cost of health insurance, but it still doesn't get them to that basic needs line. This is ACA subsidy. If they get another subsidy from Obamacare, that's what that looks like. If they get energy assistance, it's that tiny little black line. If they get SNAP or food stamps, that's what that purple is. If they get childcare assistance, that's that bright gold. So what you see is a family approaches $11 an hour. They get social supports that get them pretty close to meeting their basic needs, but still not all the way. But the moment they go over $12.25 an hour, they lose benefits. Yes, Heidi, not Heidi, you're not Heidi, but you're on Heidi's Zoom. Yes, ma'am, you're muted.
Oops. Sorry about that. I just wanted to point out that though all of these items that they could get if they were that low of an income, they're only really going to be able to get them if they speak fluent English and can fill out the paperwork and do it all themselves, because most of the people who can get these can do that. But if you don't,
there's all kinds of barriers. I mean, you have to be able to get to the office at the right time. You can't send any paperwork in late. You can't, make any errors, or else you'll lose it. But even if you get it, it doesn't get you up to that basic needs, even the most basic needs. And it's called the cliff effect. It doesn't show it like a big cliff here, but people get help and then they make too much money and they lose more help than they had before. It's called the cliff effect. Well, it's the next screen. And there are policy solutions to this. I told you early on, most people in the United States believe that low-income people have made bad choices, aren't budgeting their money correctly, and those are the primary reasons why they're poor. The math will show you, like we just did, that is not the case. It's not because people don't budget correctly, and it's not because of bad choices, although I will say, I'm going to guarantee every single person in this room over the course of their lifetime have made some choices with their money that other people might not agree were the best choices. That's just the nature of the world, right? But we could lower the cost of living. That's extraordinarily difficult to do. The only way you can really lower the cost of living is to give more work supports, like more rent assistance and things like that. We can expand those work supports, like I just said, and we could raise the wages. Now, what do you think is the biggest barrier to raising the number of work supports? So like providing more rent assistance, or providing more childcare assistance, or providing more insurance. Why don't people want to do that?
I mean, is it still just that myth of dependency?
Well, one thing, people are afraid that people will become dependent. I can guarantee you none of these things, I've been on every one of these programs at one point in my life, none of them are fun. None of them actually really get you where you need to go. And very few of them come without humiliation. So it's really because in order to expand work supports, we have to adjust the national budget. We either have to move things out of some categories to put them into this category, or we have to increase taxes. And people don't like that. But I do challenge any of you with great internet skills. I want you to look up what the tax rate was in the United States when Ronald Reagan was president, and then look at what the tax rates are today. I'm guessing the current tax rates are right around 23%, and during the Reagan administration, they were over 50. And so we have just been driving them down and down and down, which means the supports for families have gone with it. Our defense budget hasn't gone down in alignment with it, but these work supports have. The really in question are, do we care? Does the country care? Does society care? And one thing that drove me constantly when I worked for the church is, does the church care? I told you I talked a little bit about Matthew 25, and we're running out of time, but I'll do it really fast. Okay, here's the core of the Matthew 25 sheep and goats stories. Jesus was explaining to the people, at the day of judgment, it's going to be like your sheep and your goats. You people over here, you are the sheep. You people over here, you are the goats. The sheep, I want to thank you. Thank you for helping me. When you saw me, Jesus Christ, hungry, you gave me food. When you saw me thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was a stranger, when I was an immigrant, you welcomed me in. When I was in prison, you freed me. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then he turns to the goats and he says, you did not. You saw me hungry, you gave me nothing. You wanted to know where my social security card was. You wanted to know whether or not I waited in line long enough. You wanted to know if I was worthy before you gave me any food. I was a stranger and you left me at the border. You, my friends, are going to hell. You, my sheep, can follow me into the promised land. That is a huge twisting of the words, but if you read it, it says that. Now, Jesus is often uses hyperbole to get his messages across. So do I think Jesus is really looking at those of us that have sometimes thought that and going to send us to Hades? I don't think so. But the point he's trying to make is this is important. And how you treat people who are poor matters to me. And what you demand of them for that help matters to me. And so I believe very strongly that it should matter to the church. And it's not just whether or not you see a hungry person, you hand them something. It's whether you do something about the fact that in this great country with amazing amounts of resources, that we allow this to happen. So what I ask of all of you is to accept there's a problem. And the problem isn't with the people. The problem is not with the poor people. It is not. They do things that they have to do to get by. But if you do the math, most of these folks are just struggling and doing whatever they can without any great outcome. Recognize the hill is steep for families. There are things families can do to help get themselves out of poverty, but that hill is super steep. And advocate for systemic change. It's great to give money. We need your money. Impact would love to get some money. We'd love to help people with that money, but we really need systemic change. And in the meantime, before that systemic change happens, we do need you to donate. So I went through a lot of stuff really fast. I'm extremely passionate about it. So sometimes I get a little excited, but surely some of you have some questions.
I'm curious about the minimum wage piece. Because, you know, that $15, as you said, that's where that cliff is. So if the minimum wage gets raised to $15, what would that do to these programs?
Yeah, the 15, and this is not popular with my other advocates, but the $15 would make a huge difference because it's just past the cliff. There are some people it would still cause a problem for, but I think, and you know, it's debatable. There's lots of folks who would debate this. You know, at some point we have to also look at reality. We live in a country where minimum wage is $7.25. People are freaking out over the discussion of 15. If we took it to where it really needed to be, I don't think the country can withstand it. I advocate strongly for what I call a universal basic income. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the concept. Andrew Yang, who ran for president, was big about it. Nixon loved the universal basic income. Martin Luther King loved the universal basic income. So if those two guys can agree on that, I'm thinking that we should maybe take a look at it. The idea is that we set this basic living wage, that we expect that people be able to meet their most basic needs. And if they don't have enough, everybody gets money. So everybody gets, the way it works in the other countries that do it, you know, it's kind of like what's happening with the stimulus. Everybody gets it, $1,000 a month, everybody gets it. And that way there's no stigma attached to it. There's no, you made a bad decision, you don't get it. You tested positive for marijuana, you don't get it. There's none of that. Everybody gets it. And the fact is that people who are of means, people who don't need it, crank it back into the economy anyway. So it really, really accelerates the economy and it makes sure that all of our people get their most basic needs met. But it is, you know, so if I was going to advocate between a $15 living wage or a $15 minimum wage or a universal basic income, I would go UBI every time. But anyway, that's my soapbox on that. Yeah. Yes, sir. Vernon, you got to unmute yourself though. You're muted.
Okay.
There you go.
Yes. Regarding the need for systemic change, one of the bugaboos in the church is the notion that we must observe separation of church and state. And therefore that the church should not in any way be involved with politics.
Vernon.
And yet in our state of Iowa, the party that is in control of our legislature is passing one nasty bill after another, depriving our workers and the poor of the help that they need, favoring the wealthy and those who are in control. So I think the church needs to look at what it needs to do in regard to politics in our state and in our country.
Yes, the constitutional push around separation of church and state is enforced through the government. There are no rules that say that the church can't be involved in systemic change. The rule is your pastor can't get in the pulpit and tell you who to vote for. But you can all lobby all day long. And that's the truth of it. I mean, the United Methodist Church pays lobbyists in DC. There is nothing about that. And the church, if people think that there's a faith-based reason or a biblical reason not to be involved, just remember some of those things Jesus did engaged in government a lot and what was going on there. There is nothing I have been able to find biblically that says stay out of it. In fact, it says pay into Caesar what is Caesar's, but then you're going to have to ask yourself what is Caesar's. But the church not being involved in systemic change, I think, is one of the most blasphemous things they can do. So that, for us to sit as people of faith and watch horrible things happen and not speak up, I think Jesus would be disappointed. I mean, he kicked tables over. He was so mad.
So I have a question. I'm in the group of people that want systemic change, but feels very jaded at this point and exhausted, and like I keep screaming at brick walls. Do you have any tips for those of us who want to make systemic change but feel at a loss?
Yeah, this is a difficult one. And what I always advise people is you really have to kind of narrow your scope, especially people of faith. We look across and we're mad about racism. We're mad about sexism. We're mad about the environment. We're mad about unequal pay. We're mad about the border. I mean, we're mad about a lot of things, right? But we have to decide as persons and as groups of people where we're going to push, right? I wish everyone would focus on the stuff I care the most about, but that won't happen. So you cannot save all of the things by yourself. We need larger movements, larger groups. And even when you look at larger entities working for change, they have lanes that people can get in. So the first thing is you got to choose your battles. You cannot fight them all. You can care about them all, but you cannot fight them all. So choose the thing. So even in poverty is massive. It's a massive problem. So which more, do you want to make sure that childcare is highly valued and is covered? Stay in that lane. You want to make sure that the food system is secure for low-income people. There's lots of smaller venues for systemic change. And to me, that's the way to go, because then you can see some incremental change and not be so sad all the time. Yes, ma'am. Unmute yourself, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is a very small thing, but I think it's kind of important. Recently, I noticed that the size of the peanut butter jar has gotten smaller, but the price has gone up. And I mean, I look at these things and it doesn't seem very important, but if you're trying to keep your kids fed with peanut butter, you're going to run out sooner. So what can we do about merchants are raising their prices at a time when so many people are out of work?
Yeah, there's virtually, in a free, what's supposed to be a free market economy, there's really virtually nothing we can do. except provide more support to those people. Interesting fact, Hy-Vee, I shop at Hy-Vee. Each of their if you bought milk at our Hy-Vee here on the south side of Ankeny, and then you went and bought it on Martin Luther King, and then you went and bought it on Southeast 14th, you will pay 3 different prices.
I know.
So it is pretty insidious and problematic, but there's very little we can do about that, except to advocate those supports for families to be able to get those products, because they're, again, pick your battles. I think in our current governmental atmosphere where regulations are considered demonic, they're not going to increase the regulations right now on food. So pick your battles.
Well, I think, Anne, since we are all greater Des Moines area people, churches, our churches are located in downtown and the south side.
Yep.
What would you say as, a person of faith, a little bit about our congregations, what would you say is something that we can tangibly start doing? What are some of those concrete steps?
And I'm not sure what's in place right now. I think having social justice Bible studies to help people connect their faith to social justice, to deal with some of those issues of, am I supposed to be involved with the government? What does this really mean? I just want to come to church to feel good. I mean, I think taking on some of those issues in classes is super important. I think it's important to speak from the pulpit that if the church doesn't make you uncomfortable sometimes, they might not be doing their job. So getting the congregation used to this idea of being uncomfortable around hearing and learning things that are disturbing. So those are some really core things. And then with those social justice classes, deciding on some action steps together. Whether it is you do a class on the child care cliff effect, and at the end of the class, you write letters to your Congress people about what you want to have done. Those are things that I think are some action steps that the church can do. The other thing I always like to challenge churches to do is think about what's most important, and is expending funding to buy carnations for moms on Mother's Day the best way to use your mission outreach dollars? I say that because I worked at a church that did that. So they wanted to call it mission because they gave their members flowers. I'm like, yeah, that's member care. That's not mission. So, thinking about those types of things and putting it in context of what's most important and keeping that up front.
Well, thank you, Anne.
Thank you for this opportunity. I don't get to talk to churches very often, so it's super great. Hopefully we will have volunteer opportunities again. We have a lot of them when we're able to be face-to-face, so we're hoping that will come back soon. But we're more than happy to talk to you about our work anytime and to try to get you involved anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm Pastor Robin. We just jumped right in. I'm the senior minister here at Wakanda Christian Church, and we at Wakanda are just so excited to be doing this exploration with Capitol Hill Lutheran with Pastors Minna and Deacon Heidi. And we're so grateful for this journey together. Next time, our next gathering, March 10th. I know March, we're almost there. March 10th will be the next time to gather. Same time, same place, your couch or chair on Zoom. And we will be doing a virtual process that Anne kind of started us on. But we will literally be in breakout rooms working through a virtual program. You will be faced with decisions to be made. And you will work your way through a month. and it will calculate your choices and your dollars. And so there will be an actual experience for you, and we'll break you up into rooms. So hopefully there will be some conversation between you all. And then we'll come back and we'll kind of talk about those because, each of our churches is already doing some things. But, how can we how can we be the sheep that Jesus is calling us to be? Because that's not always easy to discern. So that's our next time. Minna and Heidi, do you have anything, final words or closing remarks?
No, this was awesome. And thank you so much. This was so insightful.
I hope so. Anytime. And you're going to love that game you're playing next week. It is super.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. It's nice to see your faces.
Have a good night.
Your time.
Thank you. It was very good, very insightful.
Good night and thank you.
So Robin, are we actually doing a poverty simulation next time?
Yes,
Okay.
it is through a program based in Durham. It's called Spent, but it literally, like, you and your group get to make the decisions and the choices, and it will calculate for you. And it'll be like, oh, Christmas comes up, or you have a flat tire, or so it kind of gives you a real life scenario, and it does the math for you.
Well, I was gonna say that, yeah, but I was thinking too. I know that we've done those in the past. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, you didn't fill this format wrong. Now you have to do, what I mean, just very, really, truly real life experiences that people have. Okay, good. It is very eye opening.
Yes, and just the real cutthroat decisions you have to make of, like, no, you're just gonna have to tell your kid to go without,
Is also known as the muscle
or all of those things.
It's one of the most varied animals.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Good to see you.
The 65 different species are found almost